At the end, the last part of the movie is right on my head. Land of the living.
That's fine. It's only 3.
You know I'm being rude.
Which we
You know, we tried to do that. I'm moving in the head next.
I'm honored to be able to do that with you.
Okay. You know, I'm with the vice president. I need to play it.
I call this meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. Vice President Marley, will you do the roll call?
Beavers. Bird. Kale. Cheek. DeLuca. The Persian. Warner. Galarza. Logan. Graham. Friday. Pierce. Ivy. Jones. Hero. Little. Lockett. Marvel. McGearty. Moore. Okay. Morris. Patel. Al. Probst.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Sander.
Here.
Skay. Flory. Spears. Spurgeon. Street. Tatum.
Here.
Darion.
Here.
Tribble.
Here.
Tugaril. Whiteman.
Here.
Weston.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Young.
Here.
If there are no objections or corrections, we'll approve the minutes from last week's meeting as distributed. Are there any students present for open forum? So we do have a couple of presenters tonight. As I've been kind of building this momentum up for the last couple of weeks, we have Ms. Wendy Holbrook, the Assistant Vice President for Student Engagement, Leadership, and Service, who is going to introduce our presenter, Dr. Fred Rose. So if there are no objections, I will suspend the rules for 30 minutes to allow them to present.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to take a little bit of your time before your break. I am here to introduce Dr. Fred Rose. He retired from Bellarmine University as professor and chair of the PhD program in leadership. So he has a vast amount of experience working on different projects across the country, honestly. He's been doing this type of work for 35 years. I can attest to that because when I was 18, Dr. Rose worked here on campus. He started SOS. So we have SOS thanks to Dr. Rose. And I was on SOS my sophomore year. His wife was my cheerleading advisor and drove us all over the country to different games. So he's been influential in my career in student services and is now the consultant for UCA for our co-curricular transcript project. So we're just excited to have him here, and I'm excited again to work with him on a big project. Let's welcome him to UCA.
Thanks, Wendy. I am really excited to be here. When I walk in, it's all in purple. I forgot my passion for purple and the purple bears. So as Wendy said, I started my career here. I was 28 and right out of graduate school, and Jeff Ferris, who happened to be, I think, your president, but I forgot what member he was just a delightful mentor and important person in my life, and he gave us the opportunity to come to UCA. So my wife and I came together as a couple right out of the University of Tennessee and Mississippi State. We came here and fell in love with the place, had both our kids here. I feel like one of our kids is Charlotte, who was a student here when I was here, kept our kids. Kelly Erstein, you know Kelly Erstein, anyway, one of the VPs here. He was a student SGA president when I was here, so I have these wonderful memories about what you guys do and the quality of students that you have here at UCA. So I'm going to begin with that. I'm delighted to be back and to share with you some things I've been working on the last 42 years. One of the things that Wendy said was when I ended my career after being a VP and Dean for about 39 years, I had the opportunity to move over into faculty, and I certainly feel your pain as a faculty member. And I always taught when I was a VP and Dean because I liked being engaged in the classroom. And one of my areas of interest has always been the co-curricular transcript. Or what I like to say is that privileged responsibility you have coming to an institution, knowing that you're getting a college education, and what are you going to do with it? And what's going to shape your experience so when you leave here, you can be a point of light for other people, not only your own family, people who know your own community, but much broader than that. So I kept thinking about how your experience in SGA is going to help change your life a little bit. For some of you, you've been in leadership roles all your life, you like being in leadership roles, you like to know what's going on, you just like to do it, it gives you energy, it gives you a sense of purpose, and I've got that. What I want to do is talk to you about an opportunity to touch lives of students that may not be your mainstream leader here. And we kind of overuse the word leader. There's so many definitions of what students are doing. And if you're going to get into leadership skills, then there's a whole skill set that comes with that. And when you get ready for the workplace readiness when you leave here, what can you do either for graduate school or for the work with that skill set that's going to set you apart? And what I want to just touch on a little bit here is Thomas Merton. I don't want to get into the faculty part of my role, but really Thomas Merton helped shape my life. And he says you really need to somehow concentrate on how you can make a difference in not only everyone else that you touch in your life, if you're working, your family, but also what were you meant to do. And Thomas Merton talks about how do you become the person you were meant to become? With that is touching a point of their lives of people that are not in this room tonight. These are students that maybe come here, they're working a job or two, maybe they're engaged in one activity, they come to one club meeting or maybe one activity that you sponsor, and that's their experience as far as out of the classroom. Something they really don't choose to participate in because not that they're not interested, either they don't know about opportunities or their navigation of their UCA experience has not been articulated for them. In other words, when you came here, did anybody sit down and make a list of things you wanted to accomplish when you were a freshman? Be bold and raise your hand if you did that. I'm one of the nerds, I did that. I said I want to do something in orientation, I want to do SGA and maybe something else. Play tennis a little bit. Well, I had a list. And that was a small list because it didn't really touch much more than my interest. I wish going back to that experience, and my 42 years in student life has been about trying to help students navigate an experience where they optimize the time they have here at UCA. Let me just say this in a little bit of a preachy tone. You will never in your life, this is not to depress you, you will never in your life have this many people embrace you, encourage you, counsel you, and want you to succeed that you have right now in your college experience. Now you probably know that already, but that's kind of amazing. Some of you are saying and looking around, if it hadn't been for this faculty member, it hadn't been for this coach, it hadn't been for this advisor, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing right now. And I certainly wouldn't know about the potential I have. So what we want to talk about is how do you set up a system of navigating the college experience, and I want to say the optimal college experience for every single student who comes through the gates of UCA. Now, as an educator, that's what I wanted when I was dean of students. And one of the saddest experiences I had at 4 other institutions after UCA was seeing somebody walk across the stage, and some of the schools were private, 2,000 or 3,000, some were large, they had 20,000. When I would walk, come up to graduation, sit on the stage, watch students come by and smile, and when I hugged some of the students that I got to know, there were so many people went by, I thought, I've never seen them before. I didn't have them in class, I didn't see them in any student activity, and they went through the experience really without any touch points. So what we're trying to do here at UCA, and I really want to commend Dr. Davis and his leadership, along with Wendy and a whole group of the steering committee from the academic affairs area, is to say how can we set up a system that allows students, all students, to have the optimal experience that they want out of the UCA experience. Now let me just say, it's not like what they want, it's what the president wants, it's what the trustees want, it's what all these people up here want. They want everyone to have that full experience. So when I think about that, and I'm thinking, how do you get the average student, the person that's not engaged, how do you get them engaged? Anybody, I'm just going to be a little bit of platform here. How do you get people to come to your activities? Because I know you do activities all the time. What's the big activity you have here? Name one of the activities besides something in student activities everybody values here. Boots on the ground. Yes.
Big event.
What's that?
The big event.
Okay, tell me about it.
Students from across the campus go around our community, fix up houses and clean daycares and do all kinds of work for people.
So the intent is to get everybody to come, right? And what kind of numbers do you get?
I'm not quite sure, but there's always, it seems to grow every year, it seems like.
Like 200 or 300 maybe?
600 or 700.
600 or 700. That's awesome. Out of a school of about what, 9,000, 10,000? 11,000? 11,000? So you begin to see those people have at least something in common with what's going on here, the agenda of the university. We already can tell you academically that when a chemistry professor sets up a chemistry major, they're going to sit down and it's very methodical how they do this. They want you to have these classes before you can actually say, graduate here with a chemistry degree, and we can say with confidence to SACS, the accreditation agency, or anybody who wants to challenge it, these students have had these experiences, and we are assured of the skills that they have. Okay? That would be for every major group. Just to pick on chemistry a little bit. That is something that they feel confident about. It's something that they work very hard every day to make sure students have. We do the same thing out of the classroom with as many students as we can possibly touch. So it's kind of like your example of the big event. We just kind of throw it out there and we hope people come. And 600 or 700, 800, that's a great number. But if you sit down and say, what did they get from that experience? Some students may have a hard time articulating exactly what they walk away with. Okay? That's just normal. So what we try to do with a co-curriculum transcript, I started this like 36 something years ago when I first sat down and said, okay, there aren't that many in the country. Now there's a momentum going on with co-curricular. People are saying we want our students to be holistic in their approach to their education. So we don't want you just to say, I was an SGA, I was well-rounded. I did orientation, I did the big event, I did 5 activities, I was pretty engaged. And you can probably articulate some of the things you learned from that experience. What we want to do with the co-curricular is expand that to have not only some common mission statements that everyone will go through and have shared experiences, but we have this for the student who's a little growth, the student who didn't come to everything. You guys are pretty in tune. You probably already know what's going on. You feel very comfortable walking into the student activity area because you're a leader on campus. There's a comfort level with that. Think about not being a leader walking in that room and how you would feel if you don't know anybody. So it's a little intimidating. All our life in our career, and I've been here for 41 years, I have loved my experience working with student leaders. I would say that the only thing higher than that experience for me was when I saw somebody that wasn't engaged and pulled them in, they got excited about something and it made a difference in their life. That's what educators do. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So with that, I have 2 examples to share with you. And I'm going to, this is new to you guys, so please don't think you're going to have all the answers here. This is going to be kind of a beginning. Anybody here a visual learner? You have to see things before you learn it? Okay, that's for you. This is for you guys. All right? Okay, when you get this, this is one of the co-curricular transcripts that we started. And let me just say that Wendy and a group from the academic areas and student life have already been working on this, along with student leadership. I think Josh, you're on the committee?
Yes, sir.
And so we're trying to get this to be owned from the inside. So I want you to look at this just for a second. And you all know in chemistry, they can't teach you everything that's you can possibly imagine in the chemistry. They have to, it's tough for a faculty to come down and decide what classes are we going to require. And adding a class or taking away a class, it's really gut-wrenching to do that. With the co-curricular, we feel the same way. We want you to have a lot of experience tied to the mission of UCA. Let me just say, after teaching higher ed for a long time, most, I'd say 95% of the universities in the country have 3 mission statements. They're about teaching, they're about research, and they're about service to the community or the larger community. Teaching, research, and service, okay? Now, it's broken down in lots of subdivisions of that, but that's the 3 themes. So the first time I did a co-curricular transcript, we came up with categories, working with the faculty for about a year. And it was really important that that group owned it because it couldn't be somebody coming and telling them. So when you look at this, did you guys get one of these? Do we have any more left? Okay, I'm going to make sure the faculty, thank you. This will be something, at least as a frame of reference, because I don't want to talk in theory. I want you to understand it, ask questions. This will go nowhere if students don't own this. Let me just say that at the very beginning. And I want you to start with this. If you're SGA to have a successful year, I'm sure you have goals, you said to retreat. If you don't touch a lot of students that have never been engaged or participate, then it's hard to say you did a great job. You're trying to reach as many students as possible and as many diverse programs as possible, right? Does that make sense? That's kind of a goal you have. What we do, in addition to what's being done already, we're not taking anything away from what's going on this campus. We're adding to the people who are already engaged and the people who are not engaged opportunity to help navigate their 4 years here or 5 years here at UCA, okay? So with that in mind, the faculty came up with 4 categories. Because you can't be all things to all people, it's just endless what you want to know. If I were going to hire you to work at Toyota in a management role, I would list 20 things I want you to have, the skills I want you to have. You got to come back and be realistic. Just like the chemistry department can't do everything, the president's mission can't include every possible thing you want to accomplish with every student. So we came up with 4 categories. One was personal and leadership development. We really want to tap into what your personal development means to you. There are lots of students. Anybody here engaged at UC who were not necessarily a leader in high school? Awesome. What made you jump and get involved here?
This time,
It was
I just felt like I
you wanted to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And how does it feel?
good.
Good. And that's exactly how we want students to feel, is to somehow walk in a door they haven't walked in before. For SGA, it's a big step. We want students just to come to activities where they're going to meet other students like you, other faculty members, other staff members they haven't seen before. So the first category was personal development. We know when you come here, I don't know your background. You might have come here with being a stellar student, athlete, your family's very diverse, they already know all this stuff, and you came in really already privileged to some degree. Well, I'm a first generation college student, so I didn't come in with a lot of those advantages. I came in with other skill sets because when you're first generation, you learn how to be savvy, ask questions, use resources. So I had a different skill set. We all come in with those skill sets. What I think is important to know right at the beginning of any of these experiences as a freshman is what is your personal development. Now you have to usually do some kind of assessment to know where your shortcomings are. So during the course of being engaged in activities under the first category, we would offer workshops, seminars, activities, some fun, some educational, some just experiential learning. We want you to have the experience just doing it. Anybody here done a ropes course? And what do you think? Good laughing? Was it good? Or?
Yeah, it was Fort Knox.
It was what? Fort Knox?
Yeah.
And what did you learn from doing a ropes course?
It's all in your head. If you put your mind to it, you can go through it.
Did you do the high wall and that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Did you do the high ropes?
Yes.
Yeah.
We did.
You went out?
They tried to kill us.
They tried to kill you? Well, I asked our president, we put a high ropes course on campus, my last campus, because I thought I really believed in it. And we, you know, it's 40 hours of training to jump off and you do the zip rail and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun, and not everybody enjoyed it, but I learned a lot about teamwork when I did ropes course. So we made every freshman go through a ropes course, high and low. Some of them, believe me, went on the wall, they fell. I had to reach and grab them by the belt before they fell off on their head. But at least they had the opportunity to try something they wouldn't normally try. And that's what this was about, was a touch point. And for some, they said, I had no idea I didn't have upper body strength. I had no idea that I would be so frightened at doing this. And I said, well, what did you learn? They said that I could do this. My team got through it. That's the important thing. And so for that ropes course, a lot of students didn't do a lot of other things besides that orientation ropes course because they had to do it. That's going to be the real difficulty with any co-curricular transcript is this group, all the other student life groups do all kinds of programs to get you to come to things. They want you to have some kind of personal development tied to that experience. So the first one, and you see the categories underneath that are interpersonal group dynamics, self-awareness, leadership, and personal enrichment. And then you list skill sets you're going to learn from doing those. Let's just use the ropes course again. You'll pick out skills you can learn from that. That helps you articulate that when you go for a job, or you go into graduate school, or assistantships, or other kinds of offerings. The second category is community service and outreach, service learning. Remember I said teaching, research, and service, mission of all institutions? We believe that privileged responsibility gives you responsibility to go out and make a difference in the world for people who don't have an education. And we want you to do it through service. It doesn't have to be academic. It has to be reaching out and giving people a hand. Third category is multicultural and diversity. Believe me, if a student comes to one of these experiences, they don't come to anything else, but they come to diversity workshops, and they move off the dime, and they move a little to the right or to the left, and they're thinking about differences, then I'd say that's valuable. Whether they can write a paper and ace it, the fact that they go through something and go, I've never thought about being in this culture. Now, we take students on service school trips internationally, and we've been 7 or 8 countries, and I can tell you, they write a paper, but the real strength from all that is coming back and going, I never knew what it was like to live in this culture, completely different than mine. And it wasn't just socioeconomic differences, it was cultural differences. So we want you to have that. When you graduate from UCA, we want you to understand differences and what diversity means and how you appreciate it. And we start by giving you activities first to expose you, the awareness, and then we want you to really learn about what the differences are from an academic perspective, the cultural differences. And then we want you, finally, is to embrace it. My wife did her dissertation in bias differences, and what she found was that you can do all kinds of workshops, but do you personally own that willingness to make a change or shift in diversity? It generally doesn't happen. It's an academic exercise. So we try to get you to do that. Okay? It's experiential and based. The fourth one is life and career development. You know you're here for lots of reasons. One of them is to really get a job. Let's just be honest. That workforce readiness is going to prepare you to be competitive against your sister institutions, people in other states. And when you walk in for an interview and you give them your transcript, and they can see what kind of student you are, then you hand them a transcript that talks about the values you have at UCA and the mission of this institution, and they touch on personal development and leadership. They touch on diversity, they touch on service line, and they touch on always being driven by your career. But your career is going to change in the next 20 years, probably 3 or 4 times. The skills you leave this campus with aren't necessarily going to be the same skills you need in 20 years. So workforce readiness is important. When you walk up, shake their hand them a transcript, whether you're a leader on campus or not, and say, these are the things that I had experiences in when I was a UCA student, and it taught me this about service. It taught me this about how people are different. I'm telling you, you're going to have a leg up with the interview, no matter what you do, if you can articulate. So we give you not only the categories, we give you the skills that we want you to get from the categories, so you can articulate exactly what you're learning. And then the last two we have down here is, some folks are going to do things that don't fit in here. They're good experiences that don't fit in the 4 categories, so we put those in experiential and work assessment. If you're sacking groceries and you have to work with the public, you're going to learn a lot about how people are different when you're out there actually waiting on a table or sacking groceries or whatever you're doing. We think that's an important kind of experience to have. It doesn't fit nicely into our 4, so we allow you to list it. So technology is going to allow you to do this during your time here. So when you start and finish, you're going to have a lot more than what's on this page if you do it really well. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, just for clarification on what we're looking at right now, is this just like the outline of, I guess, the goals of having a co-curricular transcript, or is this similar to how it'd be outlined? I'm just a little confused at exactly what is.
Good question. This is what it is, so I want you to see it. And then why we do this is because we want you to be well-rounded. And the last part is, how do you process all this? So I'm going to give you an example of this. So this is actually pitching it to you, and yours would look very different from this. You created about tailoring it to your own UCA, and that's important to know. And then when you get done, let me just say to add to your question, this is just briefly, this is the categories. I'm just giving you a sampling because you're going to say, how do we know what to go to? Each semester, someone in student life or someone in academic life, and by the way, the president's also, I'm really impressed. I've met him a couple of times, and he's really on to how do we make every student here have a wonderful experience here. And they do this by every semester, we would list online all the activities that are already there that would count in the co-curriculum and new programs. So it's always improving. So you get a semester, go through here and say, I've got 4 categories or 5 here. You go through and list the activities you want to be engaged in, and you put on, you just transfer it over when you do it. All of a sudden, instead of just saying, I can't remember what I did in 3 years here. I was on subcommittees, I was on a search for a new dean, I forgot all the things I had. This allows you to keep a running record of every experience you have. And then this program also ties it to either a champion or an advisor that would be like 1 to 15 and 1 to 20. And if I were your advisor, I'd call you in and say, tell me how you're doing on this. I look at it and go, you're not doing anything here with diversity. You spend a lot of time on leadership, but not on these other 2. Let's talk about how you get more engaged. So we're helping you be more intentional about your experience out of the classroom. That's a lot of information to throw out at you. I wanted to give you 2 things. This right here gives you the categories of just how we do it for one short time frame. This would be for your whole 4 years here. So you can still do exactly what you're doing. You just get to enhance it. And let me just say, the last thing I want to say, open up for questions is, when you do this, and when you put your stamp on it as SGA, which I hope you will, and endorse it for every student here, start with the end in mind. Pull out a student that you may know you have in class with that hasn't been involved. How do you get them to have those touch points that you may already know because you're already engaged? Think about the end in mind for that student who's not engaged. 700 or 800 is great for that activity. How do you get 2,000 to come and actually know what they're engaged in? So this is academic in nature, but it's not something that we test you on every measure. If you go study abroad, you get courses, you get a grade, but that cultural experience about studying abroad is phenomenal. And that's not necessarily something articulated. The same thing is true of this experience for learning. We think you learn a lot by being an SGA just by being an SGA. Okay, with that, I'm going to open it up for questions.
What questions do you all have? Senator DePersia.
Okay, so how will we know what accounts for what? Whenever we do these programs, will it be listed what it accounts for, or is it up to the student to determine what they gain from what they did?
That's being worked out. Right now, each campus will determine how they're going to measure that. For example, if you go to, well, let's just go orientation. Everybody has to go through orientation. We would actually, if we're going to do that, we'd be real intentional about the activities you're engaged in. And let's say you had a speaker who spoke about diversity. You might want to have, okay, you write a short note. Some of them call it a quick note, just say your reflection on it so you don't forget what you learned. But this group that Wendy's working with, they're going to come up with a way to measure that without making it an actual grade every time. Remember, it's experientially based. John Dewey from the University of Chicago is kind of my hero in that there's value in doing certain things, whether you are tested on it or not. That's the big difference here. There's value in being engaged here. And let me say the other thing is, it's a retention measure. Students aren't engaged, all of a sudden they're engaged, it makes a difference. They may stay longer. Good question. Yep.
Senator Harsha?
Sorry, I have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
So this is going to be a required thing
Probably not.
potentially? Okay, so no. Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
Let me just say, most schools don't, there are some that do that, but most of them throw it out there and say, we want to help you navigate that good experience. Here's a way to do it.
Okay, and so this co-curricular transcript, is it going to be like, I guess, kind of approved or certified, or is it just for the
Approved and
student?
certified.
Okay,
Sanction.
yeah, then by you.
For example, what we hope, and what I'm recommending to the committee, is that when you graduate, you have your academic transcript, and if you complete this in 4 years, then you have a engagement or co-curricular transcript that lists all the things you've done. And let me just say, as my daughter went to law school and she was applying for the scholarship, and I kept saying, you tell me about this, you tell me about that, because I'm a dad, I want to get scholarship money and all this stuff. And she said, Dad, they asked me, oh, you like being a triathlete? Tell me about that. Tell me about, studying abroad. Tell me about diving in high school. And she's a diver. Well, none of that was academic. For sure, he made the cut to get in. It was, they want to know who she was. And that's very true. Once you make the cut, they want to know, do they want to work next door to you? What drives you? So we're thinking this co-curricular. We just think people need a little nudge in the right direction, because it's hard to know at 18 those dimensions, what you want out of college experience, and articulate the skill set that comes with it. Like even in SGA, you all got to get something different, but some of you can do a better job than others articulating what the skill set is. So it will be measured with the champion, or somebody will actually check it. So it's kind of an honor system, but also there will be a writing or maybe some interview at the end or something like that. Right?
Right.
Accountability. Yes.
I'm going to add something else to that about it being certified. So this is a conversation within our committee. So the registrar sits on this committee as well, and she's actually been researching what other institutions do as far as the registrar's office printing physical copies of this transcript, like we do the academic transcript. And something that I brought to the committee 2 weeks ago was having someone, so like you get the registrar's signature on an academic transcript to certify it as an official university document. So my recommendation was to look at the possibility of like Ms. Holbrook being the signature on the co-curricular transcript to make it an official university document. So it's not just something you're submitting to someone and say, these are all the things I did, but they may not have a way to verify any of that. So, yeah.
And here you're talking about something in graduation we recognize. Yes?
Senator Robbie.
So with this, it would be add-on, but also you could take the material we have and put it into the co-curricular transcript, correct?
Yeah.
So being an SGA, being in different units on campus, we already go ahead and there just be more tangible ways to voice what we're doing, correct?
Yes. And let me just add a little bit of that. You can put it under the leadership or personal development, because you can the skill set there, or if you have a fifth area, let's say you're in a biology club or something you didn't fit as freshman, then you can put that on that fifth category that is engagement. So we want that co-curricular to be skill-oriented, not just list activities. So we're really looking at more the substance than anything, the second level. So you do both. Somebody else? This is for everybody. What would your student colleagues want to know? Yeah.
Hold on just a second. If there are no objections, we'll suspend the rules for 5 more minutes to allow for more questions.
So I'm just trying to get a decent head on this. Cost effectiveness always comes to mind. Why don't we just take everything that we scan in from a bear card that gets registered on OrgSync and then just print that off every 4 years? Like, how is that not already a thing? Is that not just an easy way to revamp OrgSync, something we already have structured in, and then just categorize it from there? maybe something like that? Is that a thought of?
They're looking at OrgSync, and some schools use that to actually monitor who's going to what activity, but we want to make sure they fit the categories here. Because a lot of them, when you're doing things right now, you can just use your card to get in activities, is that what you use it for now, right? So that would help you list all your activities, but that would be cumulative over 4 years. But we want to make sure that it's theme-oriented categories, because some of the things you go to may not fall in any category, but would be listed. But it's really not something that we would see as development.
And I just want to touch on that. The co-curricular is learning that takes place outside the classroom. So there will always be some type of verification, a reflection, or a conversation with your champion, because we can attend things. And swiping into an event doesn't mean that you can articulate some type of learning or respond to some particular questions. And those dimensions identify what UCA says is important and is something we want every student to experience, because that's the difference of the student here. So it's definitely assessing the learning. It won't just be attendance. And so that's the part that will reflect. And OrgSync is probably going to be part of the tool that we use to do that. And we actually may have to purchase it.
I'm understanding that. I'm just saying that OrgSync is something that we're getting a little familiar with here as a student body, and I think maybe it wouldn't be too hard of a transition, maybe put a little bit more infrastructure. Sorry if that seems a little too pushy, but it's just something that we're a little
That would be
familiar
a
with.
start for some people, because if you want students to get to the senior year, they don't know what they've engaged in. The OrgSync will at least tell you what to choose from.
Thanks.
Okay, yes. Well, can we get this question over here?
Yes. Senator Wilson.
So just looking through the things on the co-curricular transcript, you mentioned your daughter in law school. So for those of us looking at grad school, we know kind of what they want to see. A lot of these categories are already going to be listed on our resume. And I do feel as though people who have to be at work 35, 40 hours a week, because that's a lot of college students, unfortunately, are just going to be that like an automatic downfall, because there's no way to, you know what I mean, 40 hours a week is a lot, and especially if you're doing 15 hours class on top of it. So it's my fear that the students just feel as though they're doing more underwhelming than their peers, because their peers have a very long, you know, transcript, whereas a student who works 40 hours, and if they can do anything, it's outstanding. You know what I'm saying?
I got it. That's a great question. And if you're going to get everyone, which is the target, which, you know, most schools fall short of that. But if you think about it from a student that is working full-time, maybe a single mom, and then going to class, that's a lot. So what we're trying to do is, if you do one, like that example I gave you, you had to do one of each of the 4 categories per year. So we're talking about 4 hours a year for 4 years. That's a touch point. That's the minimum. But I would think, we're going to be challenged. Most students can find 4 hours in a semester. You have to really be, you have to know what you're doing, you have to be focused. But we don't want to overwhelm anybody. We want to be intentional about making the experience. It doesn't stop what you're doing. This is just an enhancement for everyone else to be engaged. So I would say, even the person working, her advisor would work with her and say, you need to do this. This is doable.
Okay, a follow-up question.
Yes.
So for the people that already go ahead and volunteer places that they feel strongly about, so for example, like, you know, the animal welfare unit or Mike Pepper International right down the road. So would those things also be applicable, or would they have to be all university activities?
That's where you would work with your advisor or champion and say, this is what I'm doing. And they say, well, you know, all of you are refreshment on this class. And you're done. So if you're volunteering with, let's say, Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts, or you're doing something like that already, we would probably encourage you to maybe branch out a little bit every 4 years, but that was certainly probably the bulk of what you're trying to do. So those students are already volunteer work and don't see how they're related to the UCA leader, they can be engaged in this. They're going to get that done first. And let me just say this last point, we really want this to be a 4-year experience. Some of the students who are overachievers are going to come in and say, I can get this done in 2 semesters. Got it done. Well, then they miss the next 3 years of activities because they're overachievers and they're done. It's not about just racing the finish line. It's taking 4 distinct programs a year, or whatever it is, for 4 years. Because it's going to grow. So we're looking at this being something that everybody leaves and saying, that was good for me. I didn't do anything else, but boy, I really know what the mission is at UCA. It's about the 4 things we just articulated. Right now, they're not sure something that makes sense. Am I done with Tom's?
Senator Chidegru.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, probably in recycling, if we apply that, a new freshman will have at the end of the 4 years more a bigger transcript than someone that already is senior, because it will be anyway, we will develop anyway just to know, to kind of validate the activities that are made in the past.
We talked about that.
Right, and we think to begin this program, we would start with a freshman cohort. So it may be fall 19 that we launch this, and we're beginning with our new students. And one of the advantages of this is that there's a co-curricular calendar, and so if you know diversity, you're going to be an international business major, and you need some multicultural competence, you recognize that, then that menu of those options, of activities, of opportunities, and the skills and competencies that you've learned, you're looking at that, and it's a self-author, you deciding what it is you need to learn. You see, so it'll be a way to direct someone if they know personal wellness and development. I'm going to be an OT person. Well, how do I apply this outside of the classroom? And UCA said these 4 things are important because some people show up and it's like, I know I have to get a degree with, you know, what else?
It will be more like will be more related with, for example, and I know there is a lot of junior and senior people right now. And they have been part of SGA, for example, in the last 2 years. So once they're going out of the university, in the transcript will not see the other 2 years. So that will be kind of unfair.
Well, we got to start somewhere, and honestly, we're starting in the fall. And I certainly recognize, you know, what you're saying. We will not have the structure in place to you know, produce that for you at this point.
Great point. Yes.
This is going to be our last question. If you have any other, because we do have one more video to show you in kind of closing, but if you have any other questions, please tell those to me after Senate or email them to me so I get to spend 2.5 hours with Ms. Holbrook and Dr. Rhodes and the rest of the committee tomorrow, and all of the questions that you still have, I will ask them and get answers and bring them back to you.
Yes, I really don't have a question, I just have a suggestion. Like, it's not making sense, I don't think it's a good idea. Because it sounds like you're just going to have students checking off a checklist, and that doesn't solve the problem. I think when you have freshman students coming in, you want to teach them how to think, you want to teach them how to be creative, self-actualize, maybe think ways to, like, I don't know, teach courses, and if you want to, like, check off a list, maybe it might be harder on the professors, but it might, like, do more just like, hey, if this student is in your program or in your committee, you know what I'm saying, just mark them off, and by the time they graduate, they see their transcript, like they'll see their co-curricular transcript. I think if you leave it up to them, like especially, it won't serve the purpose. You know what I'm saying? If you have your enthusiastic kids trying to check those things off, then those kids who don't want to do things, I'm just going to do this, not really focusing on the goals that they want to achieve. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and that's one of the challenges. What we would try to do is to say with that advisor, a group of 1 to 15 or 20, they would actually sit in and talk about those specific things. Don't go to this diversity workshop. Write a paper, let's talk about it, and there would be some kind of, it's unmanageable if you think about every student having an evaluation of every program. So we want some of it to be experiential and some of it to be articulated in either a conversation or in something they have to write.
Exactly. You want to like teach somebody, like have them know that they're always willing to, try new things. But as far as like, say they come in as a freshman, they try different things and they see something they like, they can focus on that thing. You know what I'm saying? So if they want to be a Josh, he needs to be the president of SGA, and
I think, yes, there are certain dimensions. Like you may really want to focus on the leadership dimension or the diversity dimension. So yes, you get to target some of that. And I think a couple of questions may be answered in this really quick. These videos total 5 minutes, so I'm not about to take them through.
We'll just say this short video, but thank you very much. It's the beginning, so you're going to get all kinds of questions. Be patient, but be supportive, and think about the end in mind. This is for the student that's underrepresented as well as you. Okay.
Okay, so this is University of Central Oklahoma. Their program is called Stellar, and they have 6 tenets. So the first video is 1 minute, introduces you to what it is. And it's coming from students. All of these are student videos.
Ms. Holbrook, will you explain a little bit about like the levels and dimensions that we're talking about within the committee?
Yes.
I think that might clarify some of the confusion about what our co-curricular program is going to look like compared to what other institutions are doing.
So what's the game? The circle game? The game of the circle that you guys
Trivial Pursuit.
Trivial Pursuit. Okay, which I've never played in my life. So each of the dimensions, if you think about it as a board game. So you may focus on one and you're starting to achieve different levels to get that whole complete pie. So some of it is just awareness, you just show up. And then the other part is engagement. And then the other part we haven't named, but it's something like a mastery. So there are different levels to this. You can't go to one program and then say, I've completed this entire wellness dimension. Is that what you're thinking of? Gotcha. And so our dimensions that we have thus far: wellness and well-being, leadership and social responsibility, civic engagement and service, career and professional development, diversity, awareness, and inclusion. Those titles may change, but so far the committee says these are 6 things that we think are important to this institution based on our mission and values. Okay, so the first one, please, Corey. So theirs is a transformative learning record.
The University of Central Oklahoma is dedicated to giving students like us transformative experiences.
Those experiences expand our perspectives about ourselves, others, the community, and our environment. The Student Transformative Learning Record, or STELLAR, is the way UCO measures and records these experiences. STELLAR is like a second transcript.
It highlights your in and out of class growth. So, how can you start tracking your experiences? You can earn STELLAR credits through class assignments or out of class activities, like events, student groups, by visiting STELLAR locations, or doing out of class projects.
All these STELLAR tag activities are built to expand your perspectives in UCO's core values: discipline knowledge, global and cultural competencies, health and wellness,
Leadership, research creative and scholarly activities, and service learning and civic engagement. You can track your STELLAR progress anytime.
Go to your STELLAR Snapshot page at stellarsnapshot.uco.edu.
You can even build an e-portfolio to tell more about your transformative experiences. Then share this enhanced resume with professors and potential employers. Visit stellar.uco.edu, linked below, to learn more about STELLAR and how it's spreading worldwide.
We're off to our next STELLAR experience. See you on campus.
Okay, and the next video is the third one it's on, is our students who have worked in each dimension. And they're, I think, at a Welcome Week program, they're sharing what they experienced in that dimension.
Hello, my name is Mackenzie Prescott, and I'm a senior fashion marketing major here at UCO. I was fortunate to participate in the service learning study tour to Port Elizabeth, South Africa a few years ago, and it was a truly wonderful experience. We fell in love with a village of children that could find happiness in the most mundane things, and my heart truly broke them. We learned compassion for people less fortunate than ourselves. I gained a cultural awareness that I wouldn't have otherwise. It was a truly wonderful experience, and even though we were there to serve them, I feel like we got the most out of it. So I'm very thankful to UCO that I was able to participate in that.
I'm Jimmy Lai. I'm an international student from Taiwan. I'm majoring in marketing. UCO has a lot of opportunities for one to increase the global and cultural competencies. Offices like the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, Office of Global Affairs, programs like Study Abroad, Study Tour, Bronco Ladies and Chris, have given me, and organizations like the International Student Council and Diversity Roundtable have given me the experiences and the confidence that when I graduate, I'll bring a valuable global perspective to any of my future employers.
Hi, my name is Isabel Messiah, and I'm a sophomore here studying chemistry, health sciences, and community and public health. As a student here, I was given the opportunity to participate in undergraduate research as a research assistant, and then go on to present at Oklahoma Research Day. Through this opportunity, which was very beneficial and invaluable, I was able to work closely with an amazing faculty mentor, apply coursework I had learned in college to real-life situations, and grow as a critical and independent thinker. Thank you.
My name is Alvin Ortiz. I'm a biology major here at UCO. Health and wellness has been a huge part to my career at UCO. UCO provides a numerous amount of opportunities to keep my mind and body performing at a high level so that I can continue to perform at a high level in any and every moment. With the use of free counseling when things start to get hectic around me,
And with facilities such as the Wellness Center and the use of intramural sports, I'm able to unwind a lot of stress when things start to get hectic in my life. These things have definitely been a vital part for my career here at UCO.
Good morning. My name is Jenna Sullivan. I'm a senior majoring in family life education and minoring in leadership. Through my involvement with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and through my various student leadership positions, such as being president of the Diversity Roundtable, I've had the opportunity to gain confidence in my leadership skills, especially using my voice as an advocate for marginalized students, which will be valuable in my future profession of working in student affairs and higher education.
Hello, I am Joni Orr, a speech-language pathology graduate.
So thank you again, Ms. Holbrook and Dr. Rose, and thank you all for all of your questions. All right, so I will go into my report. So first, thank you all for your participation, for asking questions. And just as a reminder, if you have more questions about co-curricular transcripts, co-curricular programs, things that you didn't get to ask Dr. Rose but you would really like an answer to, you can write those down and give those to me after meeting, or you can email them to me. But the committee meets tomorrow afternoon, so I'll be sure to ask any of the questions that I received to them and give you an answer by the end of the week. So again, thank you for your participation, for asking some really good questions. Like Ms. Holbrook and Dr. Rhodes said, this co-curricular program, it's vital to have student buy-in, and if we as students are not invested in the program, it's not going to be as successful as administration, faculty, and staff are going to be. So thank you for your questions and for taking a hard look at what this program is going to look like and what you as a student view this type of the benefits and maybe the non-benefits of having a program like this on our campus. So a couple of reminders. Campus Talk, Budget Edition, is tomorrow during X period in the College of Business Auditorium. I'll be there. Hopefully some of you will too. So President Davis and the Vice President of Finance, Ms. Diane Newton, will be giving a presentation on the university budget and what things are going to look like with the budget. So they may talk about tuition and fee increases, changes to revenue, everything that pertains to the budget and everything that Ms. Newton's entire life revolves around with this university. So hopefully if you can attend, I'll see you there. If not, I'll share more with you next week about that. I will also be passing a sign-up sheet around. So Safe Walk was rescheduled for this Thursday, the 29th. It will be at 5 p.m. and they will start doing location assignments around 5:15. So if you can attend, please sign up on the sheet. It'll be from about 5 to 6 p.m. But we typically finish a little early. So what you'll do, for those of you that have never gone through a Safe Walk, you'll show up to PD, you'll sign in that you're there, you'll be assigned into your team, and then you'll go off with your team, get to take a shuttle or something and go to a different location on campus. Kind of once you've inspected it, you make your notes and recommendations, and they take them to physical plant and you're done. So you could be there for an hour if you just find a lot of problems in the area on campus that you're assigned, or you could be there for 20 minutes because you do a walkthrough and you're like, this part of campus is perfectly safe, we just need some more lighting, that's it. So if you can attend, please do so. And that is all that I have. What questions do you have? Vice President McGarry.
Hi everyone. So thank you for our ideal pages. Yasmin and Gwendolyn for being here today. Second point is leadership quote of the week. It's by Thomas Edison. That's my favorite quote. It said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So in order to accomplish your goals, you have to work really hard. So last week after meeting, the freshman class convened and they picked Senator Harris as the new freshman class vice president. So congratulations. And then our video retreat is January 14th at 5 p.m. It'll be in the Student Center ballroom, and the dress code is business professional since there will be members of the administration in attendance. We typically do a service project after the meal portion of this. So if we do this, it'll be at 6 p.m. We'll have to vote on it, so I'll talk more about that later in the business when I bring it up. But the thing is, I want to do Hack Shack. I'll pretty morbid, like packing food and then we donate it. So that's what we'll be doing if people donate. The holiday reception is a week from today. It's we're still having the regular Senate meeting at 5 p.m. The reception will be at 6 p.m. at the President's house. Business professional is the attire. You can get your +1s to meet us at the President's house, and we can walk over together to Senate once the Senate meeting ends. And SGA surveys. So you should all have in front of you a survey sheet. On the back, there's a typo. The fourth question, just cross out the word "what" in the very first word of that. It should be, do you think SGA is effective at bringing about community this take away the word "what" in front of that. But please complete these and have them turned into my box in the SGA office email box by 5 p.m. on this weekend. And if you happen to lose your copy, I'll have extras in the mailbox.
What questions do you have for Vice President McGarity? Vice President Martley.
All right, so for this week for Meet the Administration, we ended off with Mr. Dr. Jonathan Glenn, our Associate Provost, and next we have Dr. Kale Dover, who is our Vice President for University Advancement. After him, Mike Lloyd, our Chief Information Officer, and Sandra just knows everything. You know what? Dr. Michael Harkins, the College of Business Dean. And that's all for this week for Meet the Administration. So for Senator Fun Fact, this senator can sneeze with their eyes open. Come on, I need a hand. Okay, Senator Gardner.
Senator Jerry.
Incorrect. Senator Gardner. Wrong. Senator to the Reed. Wrong. Senator Martin. Vice President Burton. No. Okay, well, more track. Senator Harris.
Senator Moore.
Which more? Yeah. So Senator Moore, here's your guest here for Mark. Okay, so next for Senator of the Week. This senator is a kind soul whose intentions are good and has done an amazing job of practicing transparency with the chair of her committee. For interviews, she said that she can rearrange and do great things. This woman has the capacity to prioritize SGA to the top of her list and be active. I believe she will be successful and will practice and implement civic engagement. So Senator Ivy, here, Senator of the Week. And that is all I have for you all.
What questions do you have for Vice President Martley? Vice President Martley.
I don't have a ton for this evening. Be aware of the sheet in front of you. It's got our account balances as of today. In addition, very boots on the ground. Obviously, you all voted a significant portion of money their way to support their efforts and to subsidize the cost of those fees. The deadline for the Panama City, Florida trip, which is at the end of this month, December. So that the finals is on Friday. So if you're passionate about it, if you'd like to give up some of your days to go and do some nutting out, please consider signing up. It's $60. That's real affordable. So if you know anybody that would like to, just have them Google areas and if you don't look like it.
What questions do you have for Vice President Burton? We'll go into standing committee reports. Academic Affairs, Senator Abbey.
We did not meet this past week since it was Thanksgiving break. We had a great food drive though. We really were successful. We got several items still waiting on the final count from the food pantry itself. They're a little bit behind getting us those numbers. We're hoping to have about 8 weeks so we can present our trophy to the representative college. That's it.
What questions do you have for Senator Avi? Internal Affairs, Senator Lawkins.
So we met right before Senate and we brought up Senator Ramirez's idea of putting an ethics statement in our Constitution, sort of in the front where our goals are, and also talking about how the executive board kind of swears in. We think that'd be another thing senators should do at retreat with the ethics statement. So yeah, that's what we talked about today.
What questions do you have for Senator Lawkins? Housing and Food Service, Senator Kale.
We did not meet last week because of this being great, but I did send an email to the mayors, Director Earmark, and CC Diane, so hopefully we'll hear.
What questions do you have for Senator Kale? Diversity Committee, Senator Ramirez.
Alrighty, so our committee did not meet last week because of the holiday break, but today's diversity vote comes from Parker J. Palmer, which states disability need will not come out from watching our tongues, it will come from valuing our differences. And so we have our meeting for this Thursday, and that's pretty much it.
What questions do you have for Senator Ramirez? Student Fee Advisory Committee, Senator Jeter.
All right, so Wednesday, we meet for our deliberations at 6:30, Student Center, locations to be announced. And that's all I got.
What questions do you have for Senator Jeter? We'll go into ad hoc committee reports. Fair Advocacy Group, Senator Kilgore.
Yes, we also did not meet because of Thanksgiving break last week, but we are still in the brainstorming stages for Day at the Capitol next semester. I will probably email Mr. Gillum this week to start brainstorming with him as well to see what his vision for the day is, and we're going to look forward to next semester.
What questions do you have for Senator Kilgore? Senator Weston.
Excuse me, but will we have to pay any price if we choose to?
No. I mean, we did not last year, and not for this year. It's basically, just a day for people who don't know. We're going to revamp it this year, but you get to ride on a bus, go to Little Rock, and it's basically a day of advocacy where we write a resolution, we lead it in the Capitol. There's a lot of other SGAs present from different institutions across the state. And hopefully this year we're going to get some face-to-face time with legislators and stuff like that, so no cost.
Other questions for Senator Kilgore? Community engagement, Senator Sander. Senator Therion.
I'll be filling in. She had to step out early. So we are working on resolutions to congratulate all of the athletic teams on their conference championship wins. And community engagement will also be meeting today via Zoom. Other than that, passes it.
What questions do you have for Senator Therion? Okay. Student resources, Senator DePersia.
Okay, so one of our current projects we're trying to work on is getting CPR training on campus. And Senator Graham talked to the Hyper about that, and we need to figure out funding. Potentially, we're working on a drive share program in city transport and gazebos, so that's all in the works. Senator Beavers is working on getting free textbooks, maybe. There is a program called the Open Educational Resources, and 2 professors on campus already use it, and it has like loyalty-free textbooks already. And then also stay tuned for a mental health resolution next week.
What questions do you have for Senator DePersia? Senator Weston.
I'm interested, will there be a certification in it too?
What other questions do you have? Sustainability, Senator Spears.
So over the course of the past week, we did meet, but because of the Thanksgiving break, we didn't necessarily plan too much. But instead, we kind of conducted some research about sustainability programs across the region, other institutions, and how they may be doing some stuff that's effective, and some things that we can change and possibly alter.
And of course, we're still in the planning process with revamping the Green Bag Initiative, as well as currently in the discussion stage of updating recycling advertisements around campus so that students can or cannot recycle.
What questions do you have for Senator Spears? Okay. We'll go into university committee reports. Senator Kale.
Undergraduate council met last week, continuing next period, and we approved all our action items except for one being tabled, special topics course for documents and paperwork, it'll be on the next meeting. And so new courses are added in anthropology and nursing, a couple other things. So if you're really interested in what courses you're adding, I have a list.
Other university committee reports? Vice President Martley.
So, the Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management Search Committee met today for the last week. And we have 2 finalists for the position. And so by the end of this week, we'll have a decision. And that's pretty much all. And when we met today, we just talked about their strengths and their weaknesses, talked about the feedback they received from their references, and how they can best benefit our community at UCA.
Other university committee reports? Any unfinished business? Senator Peter.
Move the UCA SGA amend Article 3, Section 4, letter B to allow the option for class presidents and vice presidents to run joint campaigns.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the UCA SGA amend Article 3, Section 4, letter B to allow the option for class presidents and vice presidents to run joint campaigns. Discussion on the motion, Senator Peter.
All right, so this is something that's been weighing on my mind a little bit. So we did have the constitutional amendment law back that's passed by Summer Senate. I do not think there's enough people in attendance for that to be discussed properly in Summer Senate or to remove joint campaigns completely. It was approved by a majority vote of the student body, elections this past time around, but as you all know, students don't read this, right? They just either vote yes, no, or abstain. They don't really read it. They don't care. And I think that it deserves to be voted on by the student body. It was discussed, looked at, maybe see our thoughts on it. I think that this is a good compromise, seeing how joint campaigns can help or hurt a campaign or person running for office, and just know that this is not a ticket. This is, you vote for them separately, you just run together, and if you run a poor campaign, then it hurts both you instead of just one. So if you're going to do it, it can help you. So that's all I got.
Other discussion on the motion? Senator Kilgore.
So I don't know. I'm a little hesitant to say, I think it's unfair for us to say that the students just don't read what they vote on. I have a little bit more faith in our students than that, and I think for the student body to have just voted on something in September, and for us to say, well, us as a Senate, we don't really like it, we're just gonna like overturn it, we're gonna vote on it, I don't know. I'm not exactly against the whole joint campaigning thing, I just think it's kind of dangerous and unfair and kind of undemocratic, quite frankly, for us to say, well, the students voted on something, but they didn't really read it, so we know better. I don't know, I just kind of want to say that.
I'm going to offer some clarification to that. So if this motion passes tonight, it does not go immediately into effect. It is a constitutional change, which according to our Constitution, will have to be approved by the student body, which means if this body passes this motion tonight, it will go on the ballot in the spring semester to be voted on by the student body. If the student body votes to approve the change, it will go into effect in the fall. With that, we are talking about the class president and vice president positions. So for the fall semester, that would essentially, if everyone runs for class officer positions in the spring, that will only impact the freshman class president and vice president next fall. It will not impact the sophomore, junior, and senior class president and vice president positions until spring of 2020. So this, in essence, we may pass this motion. It will then have to be voted on in the end of the spring semester by the student body and will be implemented beginning in the fall, but we won't see any major impacts until fall or spring of 2020. So just to offer some clarification that while yes, we did, it was approved this summer, it was placed on the ballot for this fall and was voted on by the student body to be changed. And we would be overturning what was voted on, but it will not go into immediate effect. Just if anyone had confusion on that. Further discussion on the motion, Senator Therion?
So I'd like to make one thing a little clear. So usually when we bring something to the student body, they trust that us as their representatives, the entire Senate, has agreed on something, and that is what brings it to the ballot. This was a decision of, I believe, 6 people, 5 people, and that just doesn't feel very honest. So when we bring something to the student body, statistically, they will vote yes, because they believe they voted in the right people, and they are just saying, oh, this is just red tape that they have to check through. Of course, I'll give it my approval. For the other thing, there are things that we are allowed to have fail in SGA, and we can still keep on running. For the executive committee, or the executive members, they cannot fail. Their job is too important. That is why they are given such privileges and such expectations. When it comes down to the senior class president and the senior class vice president, the turnover can be done quickly and effectively. So if we have bad representatives on a joint campaign, let's say that, then a 2/3 majority of Senate can vote to indeed remove these people. This can be swift, and if we make a mistake because of this, it can be easily undone. But when it comes down to cost effectiveness for campaigns, we're all broke college kids, and sometimes it saves a little bit of money to put 2 names and 2 faces on one piece of paper. It saves a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. I've said my piece for this one.
Senator Tribble.
I'm just going to rise in opposition to this bill and encourage my fellow senators to vote no on this resolution, just on the matter that it was, like, student body has voted on this in the past, and I'm not quite sure when was this voted on exactly? The student body with the president.
Yes, so during the summer Senate, this was something that came up in conversation with the summer Senate, which, just to give you more clarity, the summer Senate's comprised of the 4 executive officers as well as the class presidents and vice presidents that are elected in the spring semester. So that would include the sophomore, junior, and senior class presidents and vice presidents. Now, mind you, we did not have senior class officers at the end of the spring semester because seniors did not run for those positions. So it was the 4 executive members as well as the sophomore and junior class presidents and vice presidents. So it was considered, it was voted on at our last meeting, the beginning of August, and then was put on the ballot in September for the student body to vote on when we held general elections for SGA.
Okay, so fairly recently it's been voted on by the student body on the matter. And this isn't to say that I'm opposed to the idea of the joint campaign. Frankly, I think it's very interesting, and I think you even see this in other states on a higher level, like Kentucky, for instance, runs joint campaigns with governor and lieutenant governor. In that matter, you see it across a lot of states, but I think on one end to pass this so soon, and although it would be implemented slowly, granted, to implement it so soon, I think it would reflect poorly on SGA to have had the student body vote on this constitutional issue and then to come back to it and be like, no, please try again. I think it would look a little bad on the student body for one, and also just to harp on. Well, not to harp on, but just to add to what Senator Kilgore mentioned, I think just saying that, oh, well, students don't really read these things, they just check yes or no. Well, that could be said of virtually any election, and any election, any campaign ever runs that, nobody reads it, so who really cares what they think on it? So, and I'll yield my time.
Senator DePerja.
I would like to rise support of this motion, and as Senator Therion mentioned, the group of people that originally voted on this motion to only have separate campaigns this summer, it was such a small pool of people, and I feel like if we want to give a fair representation to our students, I think we need to have a lot more people voting on this. I think that it doesn't reflect poorly on SGA by having to go back and vote again. I think it shows that we care enough to actually go back and vote as a full body rather than as just 6.
Senator Farmer.
Ms. Manager, were you?
Yes.
So I think we would like some insights into how the discussion went this summer for maybe the opposite motion for this. Why was it that the Summer Senate decided to oppose joint campaign?
So before this fall, there was no language in anything in campaign rules in the Constitution and the bylaws regarding joint campaigning whatsoever. We had no language one way or the other that either allowed for joint campaigning or prohibited it. So because there was no governing language, in previous years, candidates were allowed to jointly campaign. And they did that at all levels, the representative level, class president, vice president level, and the executive level. Some challenges that came out of that in recent years were specifically on the executive level. There may have been a, just as an example, say I ran for president and jointly campaigned with Rose, and we ran for president and executive vice president. But then say Vice President Burton decided to also run for executive vice president. We were jointly campaigning. He was running independently for the same position that Vice President McGarity was. If I was elected president, because we don't allow ticketing or we don't have parties at UCA in our student government, so all of our names show up independently on the ballot. So I get elected president, and Vice President Burton gets elected versus Vice President McGarity for the EVP position. So the fear is the animosity that can arise if you're jointly campaigning with someone and they, the person that you were campaigning with doesn't get elected. Someone else does, and maybe you don't work well with that individual. You don't know that person, which, again, kind of the pushback to that is that's part of leadership and part of life is working with different types of people and encountering those situations that are going to challenge you. But that happened in a previous executive election where there were two members running for two different exec positions. They were jointly campaigning together. One won their position, the other lost their position. So a lot of it came from a fear of some animosity being started amongst individuals that jointly campaign versus individuals that independently campaign for a position. So it was discussed. It's been a conversation in exec for the last couple of years. It was finally discussed during our exec retreat this summer, and we decided as a group, which Vice President Marley wasn't a part of that conversation initially because he wasn't on exec. So we discussed it, brought it to the Summer Senate, which was comprised of the 4 other individuals that comprised that governing body for the summer, and with a vote of, I believe it was 5-1, it was slated to be put on the ballot for approval by the student body.
And just one quick follow-up question. How many people voted during the summer ballot, or do you know that?
So for as far as putting it on the ballot, that Summer Senate was comprised of 8 individuals. Since we didn't have a senior class president or vice president, we didn't have those 2 individuals, so that automatically knocked the number down to 6. So all 6 members were present for that Summer Senate meeting. 5 voted in favor of changing of putting this measure on the ballot. 1 voted against it. And then the student body voted on it in the fall. So even though Summer Senate approved the amendment to go on the ballot for the student body to vote on, and because it was a constitutional change, until the student body voted to either approve or deny it, it didn't go into effect.
Do we know the margin by which this measure passed the student body?
I don't have that, but I can get it for you. We do have the record from the election results from this fall. So if you would like.
That's actually
I think that's important.
Okay. If there are no objections, we will recess for 5 minutes to gather that information from you all.
Yeah, I think I can talk about
I was like,
I think it was in the 60s. I think
60 people?
60%.
Oh, okay.
60 or more percent, which is like 70%. We as a body
But I do believe that
Plus, this isn't even double jury. Left
Yeah, but the one that bothers
I was gonna wait to say my stuff in there, but.
yeah, I'm gonna give us.
Yeah, I can grab the last one.
Yeah, because, okay, for example, I see that, but even if we are separate, we're separate, but I'm still here back, so there could have been that smart impulse. They're not.
And granted, not everyone.
Yeah. Well, but still, like that same
I'll tell you what, I'm going to say that today. I don't think there's ever been a motion on this. There has been a motion almost. There's an amendment on there
I'll just wait till the last one. And
so, the reason prohibition was an amendment to the Constitution that we voted on because just because the Constitution is made, they told us that we couldn't. And then we read the Constitution on since it was instead of adding a Constitution, they just stuck it in campaign rules, which campaign rules and like operating me and Jamal spent 7. Well, actually, no, we I ran with you. What? Oh, because everyone this year they're treasurer. You asked me, I'm trying to tell you something. You asked me if we ran together, and I said, yes, we ran together. For like 3 days. trying to make it still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's so versatile, they wore t-shirts and I said,
Wait, did they already use that? You're talking about come on, when you get that?
We're not going to send them up. You're not going to give us snack.
Have they already used it? Have they already used it before?
And we're talking about come on, son.
well, I know that, but like, I know.
I think we should do all. I don't think that's on these. I don't have
I'm scared to eat them.
I was going to bring up the joint for hey, I was going to say oh my god.
Senate will come back to session. So to resume the discussion and to go back to Senator Kilgrove's question, so to amend Article 4, Section 4, Letter B, there were 614 total votes cast. 357 voted yes, 137 voted no, and 120, oh, I'm sorry, this is out of order. 357 voted yes, 137 abstained, and 120 voted no, bringing the percentage to 58.14% of the votes cast voted yes in favor of changing the amendment to not allow for joint campaigning. 22.31% abstained from voting, and 19.54% voted against the constitutional change. So, other discussion on the motion. Senator DePersia, and this is your second time to speak.
Okay, so let me tell you a little story. So this is in regards to President Andrew Lucero's comment on animosity that could potentially arise. First, I'd like to point out that this is not affecting the executive board at all, where they all have to work extremely closely together. This is purely for the class president and vice president, and they work closely too, but not nearly as much as like the actual executive board. So, in regards to animosity, last spring, Jamal and I ran against each other. And I don't think anyone in history has ever been blown out of the water as much as I was. It was a trampling experience. But there was no animosity. Like, anyone has the potential to run again in the fall. And that same animosity can exist when they come back as a representative instead of just coming back as a president. It doesn't, it really, like, that same amount of anger can come back, or like there, I mean, even even without joint campaigns, I think the joint campaigns don't really have an effect that much on it for the president and vice president positions, whereas on executive board, yeah, there might be some of that because they're all immediately working close together.
Senator Moore.
As the freshman president and coming in this fall as a freshman and trying to get myself out there, I kind of don't go with this motion as far as 100%. I think it's a smart move as far as running for something, but for a person trying to get themselves out there as opposed to somebody who running with someone and then a person that's trying to get them out there running by themselves, the person that's trying to get themselves out there running by themselves, I feel like they don't have a step up like the person that's running a joint campaign with someone because they're covering more. I would think they're covering more of their constituents and different people like that. So I feel like it's unfair, but it's a smart move at the same time. So this vote, to be considerate, I would feel, instead of voting to be a person that's trying to just get up on it.
Senator Kale.
I totally agree with what President Lucero has said in regards to like the concern about how the student body voted this past election cycle in the fall. This motion does not put it in the Constitution. The student body will be voting on it in spring. So regardless, like if the student body paid attention this last round and they were like, I just voted to get rid of that, I'm gonna vote no, then they'll do it. So I think like either way, the student body is gonna like push whichever direction and like the final outcome of this. So I don't think we need to like worry about what they voted last time because they're gonna vote on the exact same thing again.
Other discussion on the motion? Senator Morse.
I move that the SGA amend the. I move that SGA amend the motion presented to the Senate to allow representatives to run as joint campaigns.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the SGA amend the motion presented to the Senate to allow representatives to jointly campaign. Discussion on the motion, Senator Morse.
All right, so I think this was a great idea, but I feel like representatives should also be able to do joint campaigns, not just people running for exec. That's
Further discussion on the motion, Senator Therion.
So, when it comes down to this amendment, I don't necessarily think that the representatives should be running a joint campaign. Now, let me clarify. I don't necessarily think that they're unimportant. I just don't think that the gravity of the situation for representative warrants a joint campaign. I just don't. I don't think that it would be necessary, simply because the only thing that would truly have weights and measures to it is something like executive board or a class president or a class vice president. Now, on the integrity of these representatives, I do believe that it would be reflected in the Senate. If we see them come back year after year, they will be put in a position of responsibility, like being a committee chair. And then maybe when they get to our years, like me and Senator Ryder, they'll realize that by the time they're in the senior year, they might be running unopposed for something, like a senior class president or a senior class vice president. Their time will eventually come to have a name of intensity. But in the same time, they are still able to accomplish the same amount of work, and I just don't think it would be necessary.
Further discussion on, I'm sorry, are you finished? Further discussion on the motion, Senator Watkins.
Well, I thought I was originally standing up for the other motion, but I guess I can talk on this one too. So I think that, full disclosure, obviously, as sophomore class president, I was a part of the Summer Senate, and I did vote yes to get rid of joint campaigning. And I, simply because of President Edinger Lucero's rationale behind it, is that it could create animosity on exec and things like that. However, I do support class presidents being able to run for it simply because the president and the vice president do work closely together, and joint campaigning is not about, as a joint campaign, the rules are that every advertisement or publicity you put out there for the student body has to have both of your names on it. That's about as far as joint campaigning goes. You aren't on the ticket together because it's still individual tickets. And I can see how that would cause problems for exec board, because if we did that for exec board, we would have to have all of the positions joint campaign, because in our chart for the Student Government Association, in the back of your constitution, the executive vice president of operation, and the vice president of finance are kind of all on the same level. So for them to joint campaign with for the exec vice president to joint campaign with the president will kind of be counterproductive in a way, because you're still missing out on two vital components to the exec board. So if you're going to push joint campaigning, then for exec board, you have to do all four of them. And that's just not going to happen for SGA, because we should promote everybody running for the position. Anyway, I don't think representatives should be able to joint campaign just because there are 5 representative spots. And as Senator Therion said, it's not that the spots are unimportant, but it's just kind of, I feel like it's going into that, it's creating more of a division than what is needed to run for Senate. Like as president and vice president, when me and Senator Teeter ran, there were still opportunities for our opponents who didn't receive that to run for representatives in the fall. So I just feel like it's not necessary.
Senator Wilson.
I just want to note that initially, whenever this motion came to the floor, it was for selectively 8 positions, and then now it has been broadened to 28 positions. And so whenever we look at that, that's a large increase. So I think that whenever we are trying to pass a motion, whether we do pass it or we don't pass it, we need to make sure that it starts out with something that is applicable. Just given that there's been so much discussion on this, I have to say that I'm against it at this point, because the Senate is not exactly what it wants since it's already been ended. And since it was tabled and voted on in August, I just think that right now it needs to be continuing to be a bit of discussion prior to us going ahead and voting on something like this. Like whenever we just voted on it, and whenever it was brought to conversation over the summer. So this has just been a little bit too much turnover for the same subject, whenever we don't really know what we want to have happen in regards to it.
Senator Ramirez.
So by representative, do you mean by class and colleges or representatives in general?
So as the motion is currently written, it is to allow representatives to jointly campaign. As the language is in the motion, the amendment to the motion, that would mean any other representative position on Senate. So you essentially would be overturning what was voted on this fall by the student body. Yes, Senator Ramirez.
Senator Ramirez writes the composition. So when it comes to the wording of the representatives, currently now we define it probably as like class and as like colleges, but later on, once we graduate and move on, another term is going to actually define it, and this can actually go into the exec board. So we need to really like understand and crystallize the scope of like what are we actually talking about in this resolution and what we're actually trying to think about. So that's why I asked the question, because it was kind of confusing, but in the way that we defined it and what we're looking at, it's kind of general. We need to really define it much more so that in the future it doesn't get utilized as much more in the exec board or later on in the position.
Senator Tribble, did you still want to speak? Senator Kilgore.
So I would like to raise an opposition of this amendment, because if we pass this amendment, and then also the original, we're effectively 100% completely undoing what the students voted on in August. And I think for any good decision that we make at this body, we have to ask, why are we doing this, right? And so the two rationales, the main themes that I'm hearing of why we're doing this is, one, the students don't really read what they're voting on, which I think is really dangerous rationale for this body as an elected official to say about our constituents. And another thing is that we don't like this. And I also heard that, people are saying that, well, we weren't involved, we didn't have a voice. But we as a student body elect our executive board in the spring and our class vice presidents and presidents. And we elect those people knowing that they are going to be our body and our voice in the interim session. We have this in the legislature as well. So we know that, and so we trust them to make decisions for us on our behalf. But furthermore, we did have a voice. Every single student on this campus had a voice, and 58% of them voted yes to, repeal this amendment. And so I think if we vote to bring this, we're directly voting against 58% of those constituents. And also, I think if that rationale was true, that people just, clicked randomly, I think you would see, like large margins of numbers of like 80-something voting yes or no. But no, we saw a 58 to 19 split. And so I think it's unfair to say that our constituents didn't know what they were talking about. And yes, theoretically, they could just vote again in the spring. But when you look at the principle of the matter of what we're doing, we're directly voting against them. And I think that's really dangerous. Substantively, I don't really have a problem with joint campaigning, to be honest, but I do have an interest in what the students voted on. So.
Senator Moore.
Can I get a question? You said it doesn't affect the spring, right? It'll just affect voting in the fall right now?
Yes, so process-wise, we're debating the amendment right now. When we go back to the original motion, if this body votes to approve this amendment to the Constitution, it will be slated to go on the ballot in the spring semester, so in April when we conduct spring elections. It will then be for the student body to decide. If the student body, say the student body votes to approve amending the Constitution to allow for joint campaigning, then that will go into effect immediately. Now, for the fall semester, unless in the spring, if we don't have sophomore, junior, or senior class president or vice president positions that are vacant, it won't impact those 6 positions on Senate. It will only impact the freshman class president and vice president positions for the fall. It will impact those 6 positions in the spring of 2020 when we conduct elections, when those 6 positions are elected again. Now, because of the amendment, if the amendment is approved, that will open it up to repealing the current article that states no joint campaigning of any kind. So that would allow that would go into effect immediately in the fall, and that would allow the 30-something positions that we elect in the fall semester to run joint campaigns if they so choose. Does that answer your question?
Yes, well, I think that we should accept the motion because we got to look at, let's think about the advantages of allowing joint campaigns.
Point of inquiry, do you mean the original motion or the amendment?
We're debating the amendment, so this is allowing for representatives to jointly campaign.
Yeah, accept the amendment. I feel we should allow joint campaign.
Totally. Okay.
Totally. I feel we should allow joint campaign because if we look at the advantages, we think about we may allow students to have the opportunity to get involved in student government association who might not, who might be too shy to run by themselves. And we just, the man just left Dr. Fred Rhodes talking about, we want students to be involved in community and professional and personal development. And I think they have the discernment once they get into SGA if they're willing to, run as a group and get elected, to discern whether they want to run for executive position or not. But I don't think we should take that away from them. Or just think about it, 18 to 21-year-olds, you want to do a lot of things at the time with your friends, right? So, I think that we should just open it up. And then we got to think about the original reason. Why did we vote on it? It seemed like that we voted on it, originally we talked about no joint campaigning because it was a problem within the executive committee on SGA. Well, if you compare Student Government Association with real government associations, they have problems with the Democratic and Republican committees. We need to solve those things together, not just saying by, President Obama can't run with Joe Biden. We need to collectively come as a body and figure out those problems and saying, we're not going to elect these people. Am I making sense?
Senator DePersia.
Okay, so originally, in the summer Senate session, they said no joint campaigns all around. Okay, cool, that was voted on. Everyone said, let's nix that. Student body said, let's nix that. So then it was brought up today to make a motion to make it so that way presidents and vice presidents could run jointly. All right, so then now we're talking about this amendment that says, everyone gets joint campaigns again except for exec. So I think this is kind of a lot. We just jumped from a whole bunch of different people as it was aforementioned. So with this, I'd like to motion to move to previous discussion.
Second. Oh, okay.
Oh, previous
question. Okay.
Excuse me.
She's speaking and end her presentation with the previous question, try to cut it off.
So, for parliamentary inquiry, you cannot move the previous question after you speak on a motion.
So, okay.
So, Senator Walkings, and this is your second time to speak on the amendment.
Motion to move to previous question.
Do we get a motion for it? Do we get a motion for it? Yeah, we need a motion card for that. Not for previous question? Okay, never mind. Okay. So, with the previous question being moved and seconded, okay, we will vote on that. What that will do is that will ineffectively end discussion on the amendment, and we will go into an immediate roll call vote on the amendment, not on the original motion. So it's been moved and seconded that we move the previous question, roll call vote, Vice President Martley.
Beavers.
No.
Martin. Hill. Cheek.
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes.
Persian.
Yes.
Warner.
Yes.
Galarza.
Yes.
Graham.
Yes.
Farther.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Dubrow.
Yes.
Little.
Yes.
Lockett.
No.
Mark Williams. McGarry.
Yeah, what is it? You can't vote no on something that you.
Is this to move to previous question or to
The previous question was moved on the amendment. So that means the discussion will end on this amendment, and we will go directly into a roll call vote on the amendment, and then go back to this resume discussion on the original
So
motion.
we're voting on the amendment, not previous question?
We're voting on previous question. If previous question passes, then we'll go immediately to voting on the amendment.
Take my note.
Was there anybody that was confused on that? Very sorry about that. So we can't do anything to change it now. We have to continue with the vote. But what you are voting on, you are voting to end discussion on this amendment, and we will then vote on it. Yes. You want to redo the voting? Okay, we're going to restart the roll call vote to make sure everyone understands what's going on. So if the previous question was moved and seconded, so what you are voting on right now is to end discussion on the amendment. So what that means, if you vote yes for this, you are voting to end discussion on the amendment, in which case no one else will get to speak, and we had 3 individuals that wanted to speak more on this amendment. Those individuals will not have the right to speak on the amendment, and we will go straight into voting on this amendment, not the original motion, the amendment to allow all representatives to run for, or to do joint campaigning. So you're voting on ending discussion. If you vote yes, you vote to end discussion and vote on the amendment. If you vote no, then you want to continue discussion and allow your fellow senators to continue speaking.
Wait. I thought that moving to previous discussion meant we completely disregard the amendment.
No.
Okay.
No, you end discussion and we go straight into voting on the amendment. Okay, so roll call vote, once again, Vice President Martley.
Favors. Burton. Hill.
Yes.
Cheek. DeLuca.
Yes.
Persian.
Yes.
Barton.
Yes.
Galarza.
Yes.
Graham.
Yes.
Farther.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Dubrow.
Yes.
Little.
Yes.
Lockett.
Yes.
Marvin is. McGarry.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Patel.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Probst. Ramirez.
Yes.
Ramirez. Sanders. Escape. Sorry.
Yes.
Spears. Spurgeon. Stephen.
Yes.
Durian.
Yes.
Tribble.
Yes.
To the real.
Yes.
Wasteman.
Yes.
Weston. Wilson.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
With 34 yeses, 0 noes, and 2 abstentions, the motion to move the previous question passes. Discussion is over, and we will now roll call vote on the amendment of joint campaigning. So it has been moved and seconded that the SGA amend the motion presented to the Senate to allow representatives to jointly campaign. Roll call vote, Vice President.
Point of information.
You do it. Roll call vote.
Beavers. Bird. Kale.
No.
Cheek.
No.
DeLuca.
Yes.
Persia.
No.
Barnum.
Yes.
Galarza.
No.
Graham.
No.
Ryder.
No.
Harris.
Yes.
Sorry, repeat here.
Yes.
Ivy.
No.
Hugo.
No.
Little.
No.
Locken.
No.
Marbley. Abstain. McGarity. Moore.
Yes.
Abstain.
Will you state first name for the senators?
Devon Moore.
First, that's
Demetrius Moore.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Patel.
No.
Powell.
Yes.
Will the parliamentarian come to the front, please?
Probst. Ramirez.
No.
Marco Ramirez.
No.
Sanders.
Absent.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
No.
No. Sorry. Spears.
No.
Spurgeon.
No.
Teeter.
No.
Durian.
No.
Tribble.
No.
To the real.
No.
Wasteman.
No.
Weston. Wilson. Young.
No.
With seven yeses, 16 noes, and 4 abstentions, the amendment to the motion fails. We will now resume discussion on the original motion to amend Article 3, Section 4, letter B, to allow the option for class presidents and vice presidents to jointly choose. Further discussion on the original motion. Vice President McGarity.
I have a point I want to bring up about campaign material. So currently each individual is allotted a certain amount of material to campaign, and if this motion is to pass, election rules have to figure out how we go about having the rules, like if people would have a certain amount or if they actually save money or not. So we have to figure out the rules and revise them.
Further discussion on the original motion. Senator Therion.
I believe this is my last time to speak. This should be my second. I'd like to make sure I'm...
Yes, sir, that's correct. This is your second.
I'd like to know my... So when it comes down to information, I would like to personally ask any one of you senators, do you think, honestly, that any single student who has not been involved in SGA knows that in the summer session, a maximum of only 8 senators get to vote on something and have something pass? I seriously don't. I think every time they look at something in the fall and they see Student Government Association and the Senate bring something before them, they believe it is us. That is my intention behind bringing this motion back. When it comes down to a motion, if we were to bring it before them, they trusting us and approving it, just to cut through red tape, I would like to ask, Mr. President, if you could possibly dig up, has a motion brought before the students failed in the past 10 years? Or even the past 5? If anything we ever bring
For
up,
full transparency, I don't have that information. Now, we have a record of all of the constitutional amendments that have been proposed to the student body. Now, how far back that goes, honestly couldn't tell you. So I can't speak to whether or not any amendment to the Constitution has failed via a vote by the full student body within the last, I can give you last year's.
Follow-up, common knowledge. Do you remember any amendment in particular that had failed?
I can't speak to that and I won't speculate.
Understood. But I just want to go into the last little things. If we do pass this, the worst case scenario for those that fear this is that 2 names, 2 faces get to go on a couple of banners and a few pieces of paper. And they have their limits and they have their checks. This will not go that out of hand. Even if both of them get to do double, that's still not a lot of resources to overload the student body. It's a controlled measure. It won't get out of hand. This is something that we can reasonably handle and go back to business as usual. We don't have to worry about our executive board failing. We don't have to worry about our committee chairs failing because we handpicked them. SGA will be able to run as effectively as it ever has if we pass this. I yield my time.
Senator Wilson.
I'm moving to the motion on the table.
Object.
Table. What does that mean? That means that we can all talk about it today, and talk about it again.
Do I have to give a reason why?
Well, parliamentary inquiry, will you state whether or not this motion needs a second?
Yes.
So it's been moved and seconded to lay the motion on the table. Does it require majority vote? Okay. Oh, okay. So it's been moved and seconded that we lay the motion on the table for discussion at a later date. One moment and we will go into a roll call vote. Is parliamentary inquiry for the parliamentarian, is the discussion allowed on the motion?
No, it's like.
Are you postponing discussion? No. Are you postponing discussion for a certain time or just laying on?
I propose that we do this like this.
So, what page of the handbook are you reading so that we know we're looking at the same thing for? Senate is still in session.
Point of order, Senate is still in session, so there shouldn't be side conversations if you're not at the executive board table. Thank you. Pass the note.
Senator Wilson, rescind the previous motion. Great, okay.
Review this on January 21st.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to postpone discussion on the motion until the January 21st, 2019 Senate meeting. Point of inquiry, the 21st is Martin Luther King Day and classes will be canceled. Would you like to postpone to Monday the 28th?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. It's been moved and seconded to postpone discussion on the motion until the January 28th, 2019 regularly scheduled SGA meeting. Roll call vote, Vice President Markley.
Beavis.
For clarification, if you vote yes on this, you are voting to end all discussion. We will not vote or consider this until January 28th, 2019.
Beavis. Bird. Kill.
No.
G. Deluca.
No.
Person.
No.
Farnham.
No.
Larsa.
No.
Graham.
Yes.
Ryder.
No.
Ayers.
No.
Ivy.
Yes.
Euro.
Yes.
Little.
No.
Lockton.
Yes.
Marvin. Yes. Gary.
No.
Moore. Javon. Demetrius Moore. Yes. Morris.
Abstain.
Liddell.
No.
Al.
No.
Pro.
Never mind.
Ramirez. Martha.
No.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Skate.
No.
Lori.
No.
Steve. Spurgeon. Peter.
No.
Miriam.
No.
Tribble.
Yes.
Surreal. Weitzman.
No.
Wilson. 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 Young.
No.
With 11 yeses, 21 noes, and 3 abstentions, the motion to lay the motion on the table fails. Discussion will resume. Senator Wilson, did you have discussion on this motion? Any further discussion? Senator Spears.
I rise in favor of the motion because although in the past, I believe it was 58%, that's not a considerable large amount of victory for the motion. And me being against the freshman class, and I do take great pride in the fact that the freshman class exercises civic duties and wants to be involved on campus. I also can know how hard it is for freshmen to get accustomed to the way things work with them on campus. And so I think that when trying to navigate through college, that sometimes little things like word sync and voting on certain things doesn't really come to mind when they're trying to adjust to their new lives. And so I think while approving this motion to be voted on in the spring, whether you agree with it or not, you give another portion of the constituency that would have normally not been able to vote the ability to vote and voice their concern. So that's why and that way they can possibly influence their possible future campaigns and prior to other future freshman classes' abilities to campaign the way they choose.
Senator Grotter, and this is your second time to speak if you still wish to speak on the motion.
I would just like to address some of the issues that seem to be floating around the room. This is not to gain a large chunk out of the Constitution as it is. It is simply to ask the student body to reaffirm something they have already voted on, just because the Constitution of this university is a living and breathing document, just like in our nation's Constitution. So things change. Many amendments have been added and have been repealed. If you look at the United States Constitution over the years, and it is just a way to reflect the true values, because we have more representatives in this body here than we do in Summer Senate. So I believe that this body right here is better equipped to represent the whole student body of the university. So that's why, and if people think that democracy is at stake, I haven't been hearing it in those words, but basically that's the sentiment behind it. What I'm hearing is that if people really cared about this amendment that passed in the previous election, they will come back to the polls and they will reconfirm what they voted on previously.
Senator Little.
I move to previous question.
Second.
The previous question has been moved and seconded. So for clarification yet again, you are voting to move the previous question, which means if you vote yes, you are voting to end discussion and go immediately into a roll call vote on the amendment to allow joint campaigns for the class presidents and vice presidents.
Motion to approve by unanimous.
You can't do that.
You can?
Not for moving the previous question. So is anyone confused about that before we go into a roll call? Everyone understands if you vote yes, you're ending discussion. Yes. If you vote yes, you're ending discussion, and we will go straight into voting on the amendment to allow for joint campaigning for the class presidents and vice presidents. If you vote no, you want to continue discussion. If you abstain, then you don't have a part of this. So with that in mind, roll call vote, Vice President Markley.
Beavers.
Yes.
Birdie. Kale.
Yes.
Cheek.
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes.
Persian.
Yes.
Arnold.
No.
Galarza.
Yes.
Graham.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Kilgrove.
Yes.
Little.
Yes.
Locken.
Yes.
Marley, yes. Mugeri.
No.
Moore. Moore.
Abstain.
Morris.
Yes.
Patel.
Yes.
Hal. Ramirez.
Yes.
Ramirez. Stay.
No.
Sorry. Spears. Sargent. Caesar.
Yes.
Urion.
Yes.
Tribble.
No.
To the real. Weitzman.
Yes.
Wilson. Wilson. Young.
Yes.
With 28 yeses, 5 noes, and 2 abstentions, the move to previous question passes. We will go straight. Okay. It has been moved and seconded that the UCA SGA amend Article 3, Section 4, Letter B to allow the option for class presidents and vice presidents to run joint campaigns. Roll call vote, Vice President Martley. Decorum.
Beavers. Birdie. Kale.
Yes.
Cheek. DeLuca.
Yes.
Persia.
Yes.
Barnum.
No.
Galarza.
No.
Graham.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Kilgrove.
No.
Little.
Yes.
Locken.
Yes.
Marley abstain. Mugeri. Moore. Moore.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Patel.
Yes.
Hal.
Yes.
Ramirez.
Yes.
Ramirez. Stay.
No.
Sorry. Spears.
Yes.
Sargent. Caesar.
Yes.
Urion.
Yes.
Tribble.
No.
Real.
No.
Weitzman.
Yes.
Weston. Wilson.
No.
Young.
Yes.
With 23 yeses, 10 noes, and 3 abstentions, the motion passes. Just to offer some clarification on the amendment to the motion, that numbers were actually 7 yeses, 25 noes, and 4 abstentions, so the motion still failed. Just clarification on numbers, it was 25 noes, not 16. If there are no objections, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. That was the amendment to the motion. The original motion itself has just passed.
I don't away from it. And those are just closing. Oh, is that what it is? They couldn't wait. Okay.
This is the great session. Ciao, to blue, whatever y'all want to I don't eat turkey food. I don't know what I'm gonna eat. I really want some steak. I do a little outback. It's like 7 We've been falling out lately. We took our food last night. We took, I can say a lot, but I don't want to hurt nobody. Shit, I might give them the naked ass. I just want, I just want some Popeyes. I just don't like driving. Hi. Did Jerry make this? Like this? I saw him at what's the name? That's how I wait for 27 minutes of my life. You're not the first person. But anyway, yeah, that's I just can't sit up here all do the count of us. I'm okay. Well, all right. I said probably. I said, well, all right. Everyone can see the SGA meeting before.
You know it's a bad class. No, way over here, but their names are way over there. I think it's just
Right up the top, what's the motion basically?
Definitely come together. Don't make it here. Yeah, but that's why when I'm doing these two, we're really but okay, so no. Yeah, okay. But that's how they work better though. They just give it in.
Why are you asking? I didn't even think about it. Too much time.
Well, at least there's 3 of them, but it's still,
so you hopefully want to go back. Go ahead and have
right. Okay. Thank you.
How do you make it? No, not really. Not really. Yeah. No, I'm not kidding.
Let's see what they're like. Teeter. Pardon me, sir. What did you say? That's 2:30. Oh, 10:30? Yeah.
The body will come to order. Is there any other unfinished business? Any new business? Vice President McGarity.
I move that in accordance with the Finance Committee, the SGA allocate $2,500 to participate in Pack Shack, the Feed the Funnel service project with all funds earned from the reserves.
Second. It has been moved and seconded that in accordance with the Finance Committee, the UCA-SGA allocate $2,500 to Pack Shack to participate in a Feed the Funnel service project with all funds garnered from the reserve account. Discussion on the motion, Vice President McGarity.
Okay, so for community retreat, we typically do a service project. 2 years ago, so I was a freshman, we did this. And after we had our banquet, we all went to some student center in the room that's like not carpeted, and we had the administration and us, and we all just packed food, and then we kept it and donated it to the food pantry. I think it's a great way to help and give back to the community. That's one of our core values, service. It also builds on community, which is like building community within us and the administration. So I think it's a great way to just help out. I fully support it. You don't have to necessarily do $2,500. We could do more if you guys want. That's the minimum amount. So each meal that we pack is 25 cents, and the minimum amount of meals we can pack is 10,000 meals. So that's $2,500. So if you want to do more, you can make a motion, amend it, and do more. But I think that's a good amount, so we don't have too many meals left over.
Further discussion on the motion? Senator Little.
Senator, Vice President McGarry, your question?
Yes.
So, just a point of information, because I'm not fully aware of this, what exactly is the Pack Shack?
So it's an organization that comes, and they have this project party called Feed the Funnel Party, so that's what we'd be doing. They would just come and set everything up, the tables, we'd all wear hairnets, and we get to pack food, and that's what they do. Pre-packaged meals.
Further discussion on the motion? It has been moved and seconded.
Second.
Motion passes. Is there any other new business? Senator Teeter.
I move to adjourn.
Second. Parliament Parliamentary inquiry where the parliamentarians come to the front, please.
Point of order.
Never mind. I've never seen that. So it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. So roll call vote, Vice President Martley. Just so you know, if you vote yes, you vote to adjourn the meeting and we all leave. We will not go through any other new business announcements. If you vote no, then you are voting to continue the meeting and finish our last 2 points on the agenda. So, roll call vote, Vice President Martley.
Beavers. Right. Kev. Cheek. DeLuca.
Yes.
The Persian. Barnum.
No.
Garza.
Yes.
Graham.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Ivy. Kilgore.
No.
Little.
No.
Lockett.
Yes.
Marbley.
No.
Yes.
McGarry.
No.
Moore.
Yes.
Moore.
Nope.
Morris.
No.
Patel.
No.
Powell.
No.
Ramirez. Marco.
Yes.
Ramirez. Esmeralda.
No.
Skate.
No.
Sorry.
Yes.
Spears.
Yes.
Version. Teeter.
Yes.
Urian.
No.
Dribble. Surreal.
No.
Waiting.
Yes.
Weston.
Yes.
Wilson. Young.
Yes.
With 17 yeses, 15 noes, and 3 abstentions, the motion fails. The meeting will continue. Parliamentary inquiry, there are 35 members in the body present. A majority is needed with only 17 members. That does not constitute a majority. The motion fails. The meeting will continue. Any other new business? Any announcements? Vice President McGarry.
Okay, rules and ethics, the meeting after meeting, they won't take too long, so just come find me.
Other announcements? Senator Therion.
Community engagement. No. Yeah. Grooming.
Other announcements? Academic Affairs Committee, please stay after Senate to meet with me for just a moment. If you're a member of the Executive Committee, you got an email with a doodle poll. Fill it out because half of you haven't. You have until Wednesday to get it done. Dr. Tarka.
Yeah, I'm going to step into the role the SHAR normally plays. Every year, we end up with 1 or 2 of these things that come up. It's not as obvious as Hack Shack. So I want to commend the body for a respectful discussion, and it was thoughtful. Everybody seemed to be giving their really heartfelt feelings about this thing, and this is why you were elected to do the hard work. And you should give yourself a pat on the back for doing it in a very respectful way. So, congratulations for having the discussion, doing the work that is necessary.
Vice President Morton.
Okay, so along off that, just a little bit, real quick. Okay, so like we've already let you do the hard work and everything. That's just like you all do a great job. We really do appreciate all of you all, but just remember that we are here to make decisions and have these discussions. And just because we're a little tired or we're in meetings a little longer than we want to be sometimes, does not necessarily mean we need to always rush to make decisions or exclude people from their discussions or their points and things. Because when you move with previous questions or to do this and to do that, you're excluding everybody else's right to speak on behalf of their constituents and everything. We're all tired, you know, we all got stuff to do and stuff like that outside of here, but just make sure we be thorough in everything that we do and not just rush things just because we're ready to go eat or do what everyone else. And that's all. We do appreciate y'all. Okay? So good job.
Any other announcements? This meeting is adjourned.